Hello everyone, we're ready to get started. I really want to wish you all a warm welcome here in the Sam Cohen Auditorium, and also to everyone who's joining us through the wonders of technology through the Manitoba telehealth system. So my name is Micheline Saint-Hilaire, and I work in the area of organizational change and development with the Catholic Health Corporation of Manitoba. And we usually start our Compassion Grand Rounds with just giving you a bit of the context. So for some of you, this is something you've heard before, and for the many new faces that we see today, we wanted to give you just a little introduction to the work that we've engaged in. So the Catholic Health Corporation was started 12 years ago now by the Grey Nuns, who decided, because of their advancing age, but more importantly, because of their wish to ensure that their legacy and their mission continued in a contemporary way. Bless you. Sorry, I couldn't resist. So the Grey Nuns were really quite avant-garde and thought that it was important for their legacy and their mission to continue. And so they decided to create an entity that would oversee the many health and human service organizations that they had started. And in more recent years, other religious congregations decided to transfer their organizations as well to the corporation. So the Sisters of St. Benedict, the Sisters of the Good Shepherd, and the Oblate Sisters have transferred their organizations. And now we have 15 communities of service that are under the umbrella of the Catholic Health Corporation of Manitoba. Approximately 3 years ago or so, we started a dialogue and a conversation about refounding this mission in a contemporary way, and really looking at what is it that will ensure that people keep on being inspired and engaged by the original story that had animated the sisters some 300 years ago. And that's where the connection to compassion really came very strongly for us, that this was foundational to the work that we do in health and human service organizations, and that we looked at seeing how this could be strengthened and nurtured within health and human services and beyond. And so we celebrate, actually, this June, the second anniversary, I guess, of the Compassion Project, because we launched it in June 2010. And so the Compassion Project really aims to find creative and innovative ways for us to work collaboratively to find ways to nurture and strengthen cultures of compassion. And we do that by focusing on three main areas in our work. The first one being creating that awareness about the role of compassion, about how it lives, about the struggles that we all go through when trying to live compassionately. The second area of focus is really finding those ways that we know can nurture and strengthen our compassion. And then we know that we work in an evidence-based system, and so we want to connect with the research, the key thinkers in the area of compassion, whether it be the neuroscience of compassion to the contemplative approaches that are known to help us nurture and find our deeper sense of purpose. And so we now are at our 5th grand round on the topic of compassion, and I wish to turn it over to Don McDonald, who has been instrumental in the work of the project, to introduce our guest speaker today. Don.
Thank you, Micheline. That's for your kind words and for inviting me along on this journey. It's been just dynamic and inspiring to be able to be doing this work. It's my honor today to introduce our guest speaker. I must confess, that the two of us met more than 20 years ago, despite the fact that we don't look old enough for that to be possible. In the McEwen building, where we both were working in inpatient psychiatry for the Department of Occupational Therapy. A few months ago, Zofia and I were meeting, and we spoke of the gratitude that we felt for initially being hired in this institution all those years ago, and how then, and even more so now, that we felt held and supported by the essence of hope and healing that seemed to live in the walls of St. Boniface Hospital, and how amazed we are that it lives in the hearts of all those that we encounter. It is with great pleasure, then, I turn over today's conversation to Zofia Dove to continue to inspire our hearts of compassion.
A poem. Do you have a minute to be present? Hello. How are you this morning? You do ask me every day. Do you really want my answer? Do you really want my say? Look into my eyes. Look into my face. Do you really want to know all my troubles, all my sorrows that my heart must undergo? Stop and listen. Stop and hear me. Hear my voice, its tone and flow. Watch my body posture. They will tell you, they sure know. Do you really have a minute to be present and to hear? How sincere is your question? How concerned are you, sir? Yet the question that you ask me every morning on my way makes me feel already noticed. It could truly make my day. A first poem that I had ever written was inspired by a patient. I work in the rehabilitation services, and at that time I worked at Grace Hospital, and I was attending to a patient who had knee surgery, and we were going through the routine exercises as she was lying down on the bed. When we finished the session, she said to me, "Would you like to read something I had written?" I said, "Yes, I have a moment. Why don't I?" So she handed me the paper and I read it. She had written an article about the importance of giving each other hugs in life. I read it carefully, and when I finished, I stood there in disbelief. There were a very odd way of thoughts gathering in my head, and I said to her, "I don't know what's happening to me. I never felt it before." I said to her, "I think I am inspired." And I was shocked that I was using that word. The next day, this poem came, and many others which end up in this very book, Unexpected Gifts. These poems were inspired by elderly and gravely ill patients of mine. I came to this country 25 years ago, unable to speak English. It's not totally true. I spoke two sentences. One of them was, "I don't speak English," and the other one was, "Where's the washroom?" If you told me then that one day I'll be a poet, writer, I would tell you to check yourself. I never intended to be a writer. I couldn't care less about poetry in my entire life. And yet, when I started writing this poetry and I started sharing it with my patients, what I observed was beyond my comprehension. People were profoundly touched. They were sharing with me the most secret parts of their life, and that was fueling further writing. I also observed that as I was reading these poems to them, or sharing them, or visiting with them, that was translating into almost immediate increase in the abilities to move. They were asking me to walk twice as far, or they were able to perform things which were very detrimental to the further of the journey. Like there was a patient, for example, who, if she didn't get on a bed, she was to be sent to the nursing home, And based on that performance, if she was able independently to do it, she was able to get back home. I am going to speak today and show you how practicing presence is beneficial and empowering and enriching to our personal lives, as well as how beneficial it can be and is to the healing journeys of our patients. There are two sources of human suffering. One of them is physical, which is our body, when it's injured, when it's coming to its end of its journey, when the organs are shutting down, and when it's deprived of basic necessities, nutrients and such. That's when the physical suffering takes place. But there's another source of suffering of a human being, and that is from a human mind, mental suffering. We seem to be operating in three time frames in our minds. One is the past, one is the future, and one is the present moment. We quite often we are preoccupied in our minds with what happened in the past, or we making plans, righteously so, for our futures. But it's not always beneficial to the experience of our life. If we are dwelling constantly into what happened in the past, if someone did hurt us or insulted us, or some events took place that we can't access anymore, we can't go back there, and we can't change, quite often these very thoughts, they create in us a form of suffering, if you will. We are in guilt, resentment, we are in various kind of states which are depriving our present moment and us being fully in it. We can't do much about it. Recently, a friend of mine was telling me a story about how her friend didn't receive a penny from the dying mother. She gave all the inheritance to his brother. And this man is engulfed in rage and anger. And the things that she was passing on to my ear about what he's intending to do, including the gravesite, was just outrageous. And I thought to myself, it was her decision. Unless he fights this, if there is a way to do so, there's not much else he can do about it except accepting it. And there is the key to the past. Our way of freeing ourselves from the past is forgiveness. And not just forgiveness to the one who we perceive as someone who injured us, but also to forgiveness to ourselves, because many of those feelings, like guilt, are really associated with our view of ourselves, about how we conducted ourselves at the past. But the truth being that probably when we were there, we did our best, and even if we didn't, it's done deal. So the only thing to deal with it is to let go and forgive ourselves and those others, rather than poisoning our minds with these thoughts and dwelling on what can't be fixed or attended to anymore. Another frame of time that we are quite often preoccupied with is our future. And sure, we need to plan. We have children, we have possessions, we have plans for our lives, we want to travel. But quite often life throws us a curve. And it would be something like our spouse decided to leave us, or something like out of our control, life takes unexpected turns and we lose loved one. Or our investment goes not necessarily the way we were intending for it to go. These are all situations which are challenging to us, and as much as we imagine the future and we think that we have it all organized, this will be a reality, but it's not reality yet. And yet, quite often, we are sitting in anxieties, we are sitting in fears, we are sitting in disappointments, even though we are not there yet, and we are busy with all of this. It seems to me that the only time frame that we are truly having to deal with is now. As I was speaking to teenagers in Poland a few months ago, I was telling them, when you are in a classroom, you can either be fully present, or you, in your thoughts, you can be absent. You can be in your future or in your past. But if you pay attention fully to what's happening at the very moment, therefore you are fully engaged and you are studying already. Alike, we can do the same thing. We can practice presence. We can be absolutely engaged in the situation with the person which is in front of us, or whatever it is that life is dealing us. There are three ways of dealing with the presence. We can either let go, we can accept it, or we can change it. In today's society, in North American society, we are very busy people, and it seems the pace is picking up more and more. We're having all these tasks to perform, all these places to go, all these people to see, and we are in constant rush. I went to a meat market one day in the North End, and I beat a lady to the number, apologizing that I did, and she said to me, "No worries, we're on the same merry-go-round anyway, we're going in circles." You know, she put me in a place of presence. I thought to myself, it's true. What am I rushing to? Life is giving me now, and quite often, if I don't arrive to a place that I'm intending to on time, it's actually saving grace. How many of us may be unaware of it, that we missed a car accident because we were late somewhere? And we are having these perceptions that we were supposed to be there at this time or at that time, but life is kind of handing the card and says, no, the door will close at the moment and you will not go there because the traffic will stop you. And there is your presence. Either you'll deal with it in a calm way, or you work yourself up to being almost crazy in that car, you know, pushing on the horn and yelling and screaming at people, which is happening all around us. The practicing of presence is basically taking time in our busy lives for stillness, for a break, for a moment. That's where it starts. It starts with being still. And if you try to do it, you'll quickly realize that the stillness is not happening up here. I've been once to a silent retreat for 3 days. Boy, was I coming out of there busy. There was such a chatter going on in my head all this time. That's when I realized that my thoughts are really working me up. There is a ways of calming that mind, and one of the ways is mindful meditation. It's a way of being guided into the state of your mind and acquiring a state of an observer, if you will, of the processes that are happening there. So you will notice with time that there are certain beliefs, and there are certain ideas, and there are certain thoughts which are triggering your reactions, and they are also triggering your action. And if you stay calm and you start observing this without any judgment, you'll just be a witness to this happening in your head. Slowly and gradually, you will acquire a state which is very calm and almost state where there is absence of thoughts. And when you arrive to that place, you will find yourself being submerged in peace, love, and joy. And these are the deepest states of our being. Everything else is created by mind, and it influences and blocks that natural state of our being. I would like you to turn your attention to the page with a poem, which is printed for you. I believe most of you have it. When one comes to that present stillness, that is the ultimate state of our being. This is who we are without all the chatter. And what's described here, it is obtainable for every one of us. I would like you to pay attention to which line in this poem, as I'm reading it, is grasping your attention, or maybe how you're feeling, or what is this poem describing to you. It's a cool place. I am in a place which no eye can see. I am in a place where everyone is meant to be. I am in a place where everything makes sense, where nothing goes by chance, when my heart is ready, where the course is steady, where everything is clear, which doesn't know fear, where everything is just, with no existing must, which is filled with joy, where no one needs a toy, when there is no soon or late, when no one has a mate, when there is no time, where boredom is crime, where everyone can get it all, where no one is too small, where everyone is put at ease, where all desires cease. Everyone has the right to hear the guiding voice. Everyone has the right to use their choice. Everyone has the right to find the key. Everyone has the right to come here and see. This place has many different names. I hope you'll read 10 clues and take a chance to find this cool place. The practice of mindful meditation takes us slowly and gradually into a space of freedom. We are freed up from our natural, or should I say mind-created tendency of reaction to certain things. We are acquiring a state of an observer, and with that we are becoming detached from all that chatter that is happening in our minds. This is when we're able to enter that state of peace, tranquility within. We start to realize that our happiness is not depending on the impulses coming from outside. It's not depending on our possessions, not even relationships, many of them. It's not depending on our titles. That with all of this that we are trying to acquire, to fulfill that something within us, we are in constant crave for love. And we keep looking for that outside of us, where the only journey, as my patients describe it, is from the head to one's heart. It is that becoming in tune with self that makes it possible for the change. The change how we perceive, live, and experience our life. And this is the only life that we need to take care of. It is just amazing to me, once we enter that space and once we are in tune with ourselves, how contagious that becomes. The first time when I entered that space of peace was when I was visiting my dying friend. She was 36, and it was a week before she passed away that I was graced through her presence with this indescribable stillness. She reached that space within herself, and somehow I was allowed to experience it the last time we spoke to each other. There's many opportunities for us to practice that presence throughout our days. Like I mentioned, you being stuck in the traffic, and rather than going into rage because you are late for appointment, you might as well open the window, look at the beautiful sky that happens to be like today's, and enjoy the moment of quietness and stillness. If it's rainy, you can still observe the beautiful big droplets or smaller ones coming on your front windshield or side windows, whichever, and you can put beautiful music on. You have a choice. You don't need to go into frenzy and deny the moment and the experience. I found myself for many years getting on a broom, and I don't mean, what I mean is getting into kind of unpleasant state when my children spilled something or something was broken. And with the practice of mindfulness, I started realizing that I can change that very response that I am having in me. That every time that I caught myself on reacting to that situation a certain way, there was the awareness. And that was giving me the tool to change my thought and therefore my action or lack of it, which means withdrawing the comment that was coming out of my lips. I'm actually at the place when there's something breaks, I am staying still. For years, I was delivering free press here in the city, and the elevator door would open, and there would be a good big guy standing in front of me being absolutely scared of my presence, and I would be in total stillness because I was able to maintain that state of being in peace within me, regardless what was happening around me. I noticed that when we acquire that state, when we get in tune with ourselves, other people sense it without saying a word. We're influencing the world around us. If you find yourself joyous and you go amongst people, you'll see people are drawn to you. Equally so, we are pushed away from people who are grumpy and negative because our thoughts and our state of being, we are emanating energy. And the higher frequency is when we are happy, when we are laughing, when we are having good time. That's when people are drawn to us. They want that something, they want part in it. So we, by our choice, by our own in tune with self, we can affect the people around us. Why to bother with all of this, and how does it translate to working after patients? For years, I was going to work, and I didn't realize, because it was out of my awareness, I wasn't paying attention, that my state of being was influencing the people around me. But at some point, I noticed that if I am giggling and I'm laughing, and by the way, laughing is not professional. Not in the healthcare system. When I was joking with my patients, when I was lively, when they would say to me, "You are different," and I would say to them, "You know, this is too serious to be serious. Like, you are aiming at the end of the journey. I'm scared with you. Are you scared?" And they said, "Yeah, I am, but let's have fun at the moment. You know, you're not there yet. You are having now." So we had all these good times and joking and being absolutely authentic. And my state of mind, therefore my energy, was influencing people. And it was being noticed around me. I guess people wanted part of it unless they were jealous. There was that state of ego. Then they would drift away and have a word behind my back. But that's okay. What I am encouraging you to do is to pay attention to your thoughts. Words and thoughts have profound influence on us and the world around us. You know, I noticed at some point, someone close to me, I knew that they were flirting, as I call it, with drugs. And I noticed that every time I was in a space of thinking that this life can go to waste because of the choices the person made, I could observe myself going into frenzy inside. My body was shaking. I was uncontrollably crying. And I was thinking to myself, like, this is the end of the world. But every time I shifted that thought into, but not every person who tried drugs ended up being drug addict and died of overdose, then I realized that my state of thinking was creating a sense of hope. And my body was reacting to it differently. That leads me to that the state of mind of ours, as we come to the presence of the patients, it's influencing them. I don't know if you heard about mirror neurons. It's scientifically proven that we have part of our brain, all of us, who is literally able to take on perspective of another to the point that we are able to feel their feelings. This is scientific proof to empathy. A few years back, I was introduced to a psychologist, doctor of psychology from the United States, and she told me that in the United States there was a first conference in which professionals of psychologists, in which professionals were reporting being able to feel and hear the thoughts of the patients. These are mirror neurons. But make no mistake, this communication is going both ways. So if we come grumpy and we're having issues within ourselves, we're bringing that for our patients to deal with. Many of my patients are describing this to me in various ways, that they sense that someone is unhappy today or whatever. And some can equally read our minds as we read theirs. They hear our thoughts. I read recently a book, Dying to Be Me, written by, would I remember, Anita Murjani, a woman who was at the last stage of death due to cancer. And she miraculously came back to her body, if you will, because she describes her out-of-body experience. She came back to her body and within a few days, she completely healed out of all the troubles that, if you will, the cancer gave to her body. Within a few days, the doctors were predicting that she will need to have some nutrients coming to her body before certain parts of her body will heal. It happened miraculously within a few days. And this woman claims that the most important in our lives is love. Love and acceptance to ourselves and to another human being. What a challenge. Especially if you have a daughter-in-law or son-in-law, which is not of your choice. But the truth being that our state of minds, our emotions are being felt by our patients. And this woman in her book, she talks about being able to the point that she was able to hear when the doctor had a thought of giving up on her. That there was no further interest in fighting for her life. She was so aware of it. And many patients that I work with are describing it. We are influencing their journey of healing. So the idea is that we got to take care of ourselves. We are going to live our life to the fullest. We having the responsibility to be joyous. It's like the bird, one and only, that is chirping in the park and makes the whole world around him different. We all have that capability whenever we go, wherever we are. Don't let people to pull you into their miseries, into their, how they, my sons are calling it a certain way. They're calling it drama. Stay tuned in with yourself. It's hard, especially when you are very caring, giving, and compassionate person. But when we come to the presence of the patient, if our mind is clear, if we are patient, present, peaceful, joyous, if we are in a state of service, if we have the intention to serve, if we are open to them, if we have no judgment towards their feelings and their way of being and describing things, then we are in profound role of helping them out. And they'll know it, and they'll take on that invitation. It starts with how you come to the patient's bedside and how you introduce yourself. If you say, I'm the therapist versus I'm your therapist. When you say, I'm your therapist, it implies that you are in a service to the person. You're not coming there with your own agenda, your own goal, your own time frame. The patient is the center, and you are to let the patient speak where they're at, and then accordingly to respond to their needs. How many times I came to a patient's bedside in a hospital setting and the patient said, I just took a pill for pain. Now, if it was on my terms, I would be taking the patient out of the bed and taking them down for a walk. They could not accomplish as far a walk. But if I gave it a time, if I took under consideration their wish and where they at, I was able to plan my schedule. I would go to different rooms, see someone else who was ready at the moment, and come back to this patient. And then the performance was that much better because I was in tune with their need, not my plan. Kind of alien idea, eh? We all have to be on time in certain places and have it to our plans. But their healing takes time at the pace it needs to take time. And our agendas maybe are not enhancing that healing. How the world would be different if we were actually listening to what patient needs at the very moment. I would like to read you a poem. And this poem would speak to how we speak to our patients. This is the glitch. The title of the poem is Blind Love, and I seem to be blind right at the moment, unable to find it. There it is. Blind Love. It's the glasses. I'm having a hard time to admit it. Blind love. I'll pick you up whenever I can, even when I'm viewed as insane. I'll pick you up from clean place or dirt, with broken heart, in stained or white shirt. I'll pick you up at any cost. In love with you, I get lost. To accept you, I'll use any measure, because you are my biggest treasure. I worry about you day and night, when you are not in view, out of sight. Without you, days have just a dim light. For you, I'll take on any fight. I know you are a psychopath, honey. In pursuing you, I'll spend my whole life, dear money. I'll read it again. I hope you all heard the last word was money, not honey. Blind love. I'll pick you up whenever I can, even when I'm viewed as insane. I'll pick you up from clean place or dirt, with broken heart, in stained or white shirt. I'll pick you up at any cost. In love with you, I get lost. To accept you, I'll use any measure, because you are my biggest treasure. I worry about you day and night, when you are not in view, out of sight. Without you, days have just a dim light. For you, I'll take on any fight. I know you're a psychopath, honey. In pursuing you, I'll spend my whole life, dear money. This poem is, I hope, clearly illustrating how the tone of our voice sends different messages. When I was reading it the first time, I hope most of you were thinking that I am talking about someone who is truly caring for another. And it's ironic that the same words can be used to describe how we are relating to an object. And then is the play on the words in our minds, that what we are trying to communicate is not necessarily received the same way. So what we're trying to say to a patient depends on the tone of voice. And then our willingness to hear them repeated to us, or maybe the other way around. Yesterday I was in the presence of two people communicating, and I found it quite reassuring that the man who was being asked a question repeated that question first before he answered. He was making sure that was being communicated to him is exactly the way he received it. Are we having time for this? Are we listening to our patients? Are we hearing them? If any one of us was ever experiencing pain and trouble and sickness, we know, like Karen Toole said in her presentation last year at Hospice Palliative Care, I heard her, the distance between the one by the bed and the one inside is 1 step. Sometimes it's a one turn. Sometimes it's a split of a moment, second. Day, life, and the journey of healing depends on us, on a kind word, on a kind touch, on the presence, on our abilities and willingness to listen first. It is scientifically proven that the doctors who score higher on the test in area of empathy, their patients heal faster. I work on the orthopedic floor here at St. Boniface Hospital. It was very well known to many of the staff members that certain surgeon had a very high rate of success with his surgeries. His patients were experiencing less pain than other surgeons which were performing the same surgery. Why? This man was coming on, when the turn came, on the weekend and made the point of talking to every patient of his. And we noticed that when the patient was coming out of surgery, was experiencing less pain, and was healing faster. Let's be very mindful of our thoughts, of what we bring to the presence of another. Let us be the joy, the love that the people around us need. We can all do it. We are in a facility which became because of a woman's heart, caring heart, compassionate heart. She saw the need of another, regardless how they looked, what position they held, how much they had on account, how big of a house they lived in. They were all treated equal. Are we doing this? Are we present to everyone who comes to our lives with the same intent, with the same word of encouragement? Usually those which are trying to suppress us and which are in anger and all of this, they need the most help. They're the most deprived. They're the most unconscious at the moment. Our stillness, our peace, even though it seems weak to the people from outside, is actually very powerful because it puts them in check. One of my children is famous for screaming to me, "You screaming to me!" And I'm standing there silent. Whenever I was pulled into that game, I was being accused of the crazy one. It was my stillness, it was my silence that eventually made that child of mine to look within and realize I am the screaming one because she is not moving her lips. And this is the power of peace. I don't know how much time we have. 15 more minutes. I would like to share with you some stories that patients shared with me, how that presence of ours is truly helping them out. I am so fortunate. I'm working with a therapist which is allowing me to listen and talk to patients. I know it quite often interferes her goals from physiotherapy point of view, but then the patients, not always in my presence, but in many other people's presence, describe things like this. Just last week, one lady said to me that she is so thankful for coming to the day hospital where I work. And I said, why is it? She said, the lady that was attending to her, she was able to relate to her. And she said, I was finally able to admit to myself that the reason that I was not having the best of a relationship with one of my closest family members was because I was holding on to resentment. It was the caregiver's ability to listen and hear her out that allowed for that blocked feeling to come to the surface of awareness. And once it was named, it was released. On another occasion, I would attend to a patient who was fuming with anger. And everyone knew about it. No one wanted to go to his room. And all it took for me is to listen. And actually, I ended up taking him to another room, and I was just sitting there and listening to him for 2 hours. Big chunk of time, you would say, and many of us would think wasted. What it translated to, the man said to me, I can tell every one of them walks into this room, they think, what an alcoholic. He told me his life journey, his life story. There was a lot of pain, there was a lot of suffering. There was a lot of loneliness. And what I heard from the nurses a week later when I came to that hospital was that, what did you do to this man? He was like an angel ever since. That translates to saving time and resources. If the person which is seeing the patient initially, on the first visit, gives them the space to be heard, that translates to monetary values. Because this man then was in full cooperation, and rather than being resistant to the process, now he was in full cooperation, and frankly, by the time I came there a week later, he was gone already, discharged home. That's the power of listening. On another occasion, a lady was coming to the gym, and we were supposed to do, of course, exercises, but she kept telling me her life story. And I remember when she was introduced to me, or she was spoken about, the first word that came to my ear was, she's angry woman. Now, it took a few visits, and she kept telling me about her life journey, and it came finally to what it was that she carried around. She was accused by her mother-in-law for being responsible for her husband's heart attack, which ended in his death. This woman carried that in her for years. When she was leaving gym, she said to me, 10 pounds came off my shoulder. Emotions are powerful. They're locked inside us. They are burdens we carry around out of our consciousness. But if we get someone who listens, who is present, who is non-judgmental, who is just a witness there without any need to fix it or change it or name it, this is indescribable gift. And make no mistake, once we give them the presence of ours, they return it plentiful. Hence the book of unexpected gifts, which is reaching hearts of many who are in a state of suffering and easing their pain and their journey. What an amazing win-win. I thank you all for coming and listening to my presentation. I was shaking in my boots. I never imagined that one day I'll be in front of the audience speaking about all these experiences. I know they're fully applicable to the patient's interaction, as well in interaction in everyday life. I am myself on my journey of healing and trying to change and get in tune with that within me, which is nothing but bliss and love. We are here continuing the journey and the legacy of a woman with a huge heart. Let us not forget it started with a compassion. Thank you very much.
Merci, Zofia. I want to say thank you for your gift of presence and for being here today and accepting to share your insights, your teachings, and your stories with us. I think we, as human beings, find ourselves in contact with other human beings at moments of great joy and also of great suffering. So you bring very key moments for us to consider. Go ahead.
I would like to thank Don McDonald and Micheline St. Hilaire for inviting me today, for giving me this opportunity to voice my passion. I feel like I was sent here by my patients who are very vocal about what matters to them when they're in the bedside. And thank you for the opportunity to speak on their behalf. Thank you.